Hi, I'm Joyce Creiger, and this is ArtLink, conversations with artists, art consultants, designers, architects, art galleries, art lovers, and art collectors. My guest today is a painter with a lot of degrees and a lot of talent. Her name is Kristin Stashenko. Welcome, Kristin.
Hi, Joyce. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you. So I've looked at a lot of your work, and we've had a lot of time to talk together. And I'd like you to tell our audience a little bit about how you got to where you are today, because you did not take the traditional path.
This is very true. I actually didn't start out as an artist, although as a child I loved to draw, but back when it was time to go to college, it seemed I needed something that I knew that I could do as a career, so I went into science. I got my undergrad degree in biology from UMass, and then I got a graduate degree from Northeastern in microbiology, and I worked in research for years at Forsyth Institute. So I continued to draw, still painted on a, for a hobby. But when I had my second child, it had always been a passion of mine to really do something with art. So I put together a portfolio, and I got accepted to Mass Art, and it was like one of the best experiences of my life. I was probably the oldest student, and it was just so much fun.
No desire to ever go back?
To research?
Right.
No. I love art. I love painting. I love what I'm doing right now.
So you originally started off as a watercolor painter.
That's true. That's true.
And then something clicked and you started working more opaquely with gouache?
Yeah. I originally, when I graduated from Mass Art, I wanted to be able to do something that I could make money at right away. And I found a real good niche for me, which was greeting cards and product design. So I could freelance that and stay at home with my kids.
So tell us a little bit about what it was like to run a business, have a couple of kids, have a prominent husband, and still be able to nurture your career and make the decisions that were necessary for your eventual entry into the art business.
Yeah, it actually at that time, I think it works a little differently now, but at that time it was much lower tech. I was able to just put together samples of my work with a cover letter and send them off to places that I thought would be interested in my style. And lo and behold, I started getting phone calls.
So is this like publishers of greeting cards, book publishers?
Yeah, so I did a few books. I worked very consistently for about 5 or 6 greeting card companies. So at any given week, I might have 2 or 3 assignments, which I could do. I had deadlines, but I could, if I needed to do it at 3 in the morning, I could.
So how does that work? If somebody gives you an assignment, do they give you the text that goes in the card?
They tell you to leave places for text. And then other times I would just, if it was just for a note card, there was no text.
But how did you know what to do? I mean, did they give you direction?
They do give you direction. A lot of times it's very specific to a holiday or time of year, so season. Some art directors were a lot easier to work for than others. If I developed a relationship, they would trust me and they'd call me and say, I need a birthday, I need something that says summer, and a Father's Day card.
So what would you give them? What size of artwork would you give them?
Well, every company has their own very specific way that they cut them, so you have to make them a specific size with a bleed.
So in other words, if an artist wants to, let's say somebody who's listening into this conversation wants to get into this business, there's really they don't just submit a design. It has to be within a certain format, and they have to sort of know graphic design, not just be a painter.
Well, I still think every company is different. There are some card companies that will accept submissions of your work, and they might use that image. More often than not, they might like that image, but they want something else.
Okay.
So then they tell you exactly what their specifications are, and you run back and forth with sketches. It's not like, oh, well, just paint us a painting and you're done. It's a process.
And are you able to make a living doing that?
For me, it was actually pretty good. I mean, like I said, that was back, I'd say, all through the 90s and early 2000. I made a pretty good living. It was definitely supplemental. It was almost as good as what I was making at research.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, what snapped in your head that said, I'm done with this, I want my own studio, I want to be a painter?
Yeah. Card design gets pretty redundant. And especially, a lot of my companies, I worked on royalty basis. So if a design was doing extremely well, they wanted another one like it, but not it. And that got
so it's very rote.
Dreadfully boring. Yeah, I shouldn't say it like that, but
no, I understand.
Yeah. Also, cards are small. They'll upsize them 100%. But if the card size is originally 5x7, then you're still only talking 10 by 14 size painting. And I started wanting to explore a little bit more, paint them bigger. So yeah.
So again, at what point did you say, Kristin, I'm done with this. I want to do what I want to do. I want to be a painter. I want to get a studio. I want to do it full time.
I think it was a combination of my feeling that, but also the card industry was changing and the economy was changing. So a lot of the companies I worked for were little alternative companies that went out of business.
If you were to tell us, let's say, what were 2 or 3 mistakes as a businesswoman in the greeting card business that you made, could you identify them?
Well, I can identify one big one, and I had a big job with a company, and he told me, you know, you really need a rep. I will hook you up with somebody, and I never took him up on it. I think in this business of freelance, having a rep is really key. I did all my own marketing, and I think if you have somebody who's pushing that marketing for you, I think that you could be even more successful.
So what keeps you motivated? What keeps your creativity, your creative juices going?
Yeah. I'd say 2 things. Well, sometimes you have downers. So there's definitely that you go through that. But I don't know, most of the time, I'm just always thinking about a painting. I'm painting when I'm sleeping at night. I've got a painting going in my brain. I don't know, I just look around. I think the world's an interesting place. I love the way you look at something, the way the light shines on it, or a person's face. To me, every scene is a painting.
Well, for a while, windows seemed to show up in your paintings a lot. What was that about?
I don't know, I think I like the way the inside and the outside, the concept of 2 worlds. I also like the way windows reflect back at the thing you're looking at. So I think windows are kind of interesting. They're, they have a little bit of a symbolic feeling. Doorways are like that too. I also like doorways. I think they're personal to some extent. So
now, would someone like Richard Estes in any way be somebody that you would look at?
Oftentimes when I am painting, I look at different artists. Richard Estes maybe is not, one of my mentors, but oftentimes if I'm painting something and I feel like I want inspiration from an artist, I'll have one of the images or a book open so that I can, feel that process.
Who would be someone that might have influenced your work?
I have a couple of people that I use regularly. Well, I've always loved Hopper and Sargent. Those are my 2 old guys. Vermeer's another one in that category.
Really?
Love Vermeer because of the lighting is just phenomenal. But more contemporary artists, I like Dean Mitchell, who is an incredible artist, and I followed his career now for the past number of years. In fact, last year I had a painting accepted into the American Watercolor Society
That's
show.
prestigious, yes.
And with Dean Mitchell, so it was like, oh my gosh, now I've arrived.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, it was really exciting. And there were several other artists that are sort of heroes to me as well.
Who else would that be?
John Salomon, Carla O'Connor. So a bunch of really unbelievably talented artists that I felt honored to be in their presence with my artwork.
Now, are you currently showing in a gallery at all?
Yes, I have pieces in Copley Society of Art on Newbury Street. I have some solo things coming up. I'm going to be doing a show at the Rhode Island Watercolor Society in the summer.
Have you done any of the works for that yet?
I I've got some that I can do. Definitely will be producing more work for that show.
Is this going to be a horse show? I know you're into
yeah,
horses.
I'm in a horse phase right now. That's true. Probably will have some horses in there, but I think that you were talking about creativity, and I think that for me is mixing it up with different things. Like sometimes horses will inspire me, or sometimes I'm actually working on some portraits now that might inspire me. And architecture always inspires me. So I think, you know, different things can get you going, and then even affects other parts of your work.
Now, when you made the switch from watercolor to gouache, what was it about gouache that gave you a sense of being more comfortable as a medium?
I love gouache. It has this wonderful velvety finish, and the colors are just gorgeous. I love the opacity of it, so it's a stronger, to me, it's a stronger medium than watercolor. So I like that about it.
You can use white with gouache, but you can't use white with watercolor. Is that right?
Or purists in transparent watercolor would not ever use white. That's true. But certainly, even Sargent used white with his watercolors. If you ever went to that show.
I actually looked very carefully, and I saw that. But it was white gouache, wasn't it?
Yeah. You can mix white gouache with any watercolor, and it'll get a gouache type look. Yeah. You know, if you need a different pigment or something like that, yeah.
So what do you have planned coming up? I know you have an open studio. You're at the Fountain Street Studios in Framingham?
Yeah, this is an exciting time of year for us, and actually the spring show is always a really good show. It's going to be April 4th, 5th, and 6th, so Friday night, and 11 to 5 on Saturday.
This is on Fountain Street in Framingham.
On Fountain Street in Framingham, address 59 Fountain Street. And it's a really cool old building. Used to be a hat factory, and we all have like these really interesting spaces with big high windows, and we all have, so each person has their own space.
How many artists are showing?
This show, I think 50. I think there's as many as 70 or 80 in the building, but at any given time, you know, people might have other commitments, but I think we have 50 opening their doors on that weekend.
What are the titles of some of the pieces you'll be showing in that?
Titles. Let's see. Some of my horses: Elegance, Wild Eyes, Horse in Blue.
That's 3 horses. Any Boston scenes?
Lots of Boston scenes. I have Beacon Hill Charm, Beacon Hill Sunshine. Let's see, I had a Back Bay scene that I haven't named yet.
Back Bay is good enough.
Yeah, there you go. That might work too. I have several pieces from my trip to Venice. So when
was that?
2 years ago in summer of July of, what was that?
And you went there to see everything and just painted?
Yeah, and I take my camera everywhere, so I'm always taking pictures because you just never know when you're
So do you actually paint from a photograph, or do you paint from the actual scene itself?
I always use photographs. I mean, to set up your easel in Venice would be tough. And number one, my paintings they take a lot of time. They're not something I'm going to do like a little sketch in a couple of hours. But that being said, I might use a combination of photos and a sketch.
So what are your new works? You're talking a little bit about the portraits. You're talking about the horses. Do you have any other things tacked up in your studio that are coming on board for you to think about?
I'm always working on architectural pieces. So my newest architectural piece is actually New York City. And
that's ambitious.
Yeah, I love New York City. It has a lot of interesting stuff. But it's a scene outside of the MoMA store, the design store. So really, it has like the flag of the store and just the people, the energy of the scene. So
now, how many photographs would you take to do one painting?
For that one, I think I had about 4 or 5.
So you'll look at different points of view, different perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that doesn't get confusing as opposed to just copying one painting, one picture?
No, because sometimes I want the detail that I'm missing. You know, I might focus in on one thing that I really like that I don't really have in a photo. So and I'm simplifying. I'm simplifying my photos. I'm not like I'm editing. I'm not like putting everything in that you see in a scene.
Now, is there going to be a whole series on New York or just this one?
Yeah, I actually have several other things that I'm thinking about. So yeah. I like New York, and my son lives in Brooklyn, so
Brooklyn has changed a lot.
Yeah. But that's a fun area. I actually did a painting of, you know, sort of it's a gritty area, but it came out really cool. It's all of like fire escapes and that kind of thing.
Oh, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, that's cool. I called it Brooklyn Morning. My son was still sleeping, so I went out and did a little photo shoot around his neighborhood.
Speaking of internet, how has the internet impacted your work at all?
You know,
from a marketing point of view. I mean, I know you're on Art Specifier.
Right.
We're recently getting to know your work.
Right.
Have you tried other sites as well?
You know, I probably need to explore that more. I think I'm of the age where, you know, I didn't grow up with the internet, so it's becoming more useful to me. I do have Facebook, so
but you have a website.
I have a website, so it makes like sending out evites for different events easier, things like that. I think I could make so much more use of the internet. My daughter's always telling me, Mom,
how about Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Pinterest?
I do have LinkedIn, I do have Facebook. I don't use it enough, because I think to make it successful, it's the kind of thing that you want to be posting things a lot.
Right. I mean,
so
that's why that is
yeah.
why I started Art Specifier, to help artists do this.
Right.
But I encourage them to do it on their own as well.
No, I agree. I think it's definitely.
It's such an easy way to communicate with the people. I mean, I know art consultants now, they don't even want to see paper.
Right.
Please don't send me anything. It's just going to go in the trash.
Yeah, no, that's
Give me your
true.
website, you know, send me some things in an email from time to time. And I know I prefer to have people sending me that rather than sending me things in the mail.
Yeah. Well, it's easier than you have it right there on you can easy to find.
Exactly.
Wrestling through papers.
So what does your studio look like? Is it messed up, or is it neat as a pin? Or
well, it's not neat as a pin. I think I'm neater than some. And it always looks great at open studios because I clean it up. But it's always kind of a little messy because I usually have 3 or 4 projects going, so I'll have, you know, a painting set up with the media for that. And
so you do more than one painting at a time?
I do. I usually have 3 going because sometimes you'll hit a point in a painting where it's like, I just need to put this away. I need to not look at this because I'm not really sure where else I want to take it. And then I'll put it away. Sometimes I'll even put it away so I can't look at it.
Really?
Yeah, because then it's nice to have a fresh eye and pull it out in another week or 2. Yeah.
So when you're doing a painting, tell me the process of watercolor. I'm not that familiar with it. I know some people paint with wet paper, some with dry paper, some...
Yeah. With gouache, it would always be dry paper. Watercolor, and everybody has their own different way of working, but generally I don't like wet the whole paper. You can totally lose control. Sometimes I'll wet an area if I'm looking for a wet-on-wet technique, so I'll, you know, just a small area that I can, you know, have control with. Sometimes I use dry brush, so it's a layering process.
And you draw it out first?
I do, yep.
Do you mask things out? Or?
I use like a liquid frisket for like real specific whites that I want to save, but a lot of times I just paint around them.
Have you ever done a video of you working?
No,
that would be interesting to see that.
Yeah.
How important is a sense of community to you as an artist?
You know, I think since I've only had my studio at Framingham now, Fountain Street, for like about 2 years, I guess, and it's just been a huge improvement in my lifestyle as an artist because I have other artists there, people to bounce things off of. If I'm having trouble with something, I go seek somebody out and have them come take a look. They do the same. So it's really nice to have that camaraderie. Like my husband always used to say, he's a scientist, is you can't do science in a vacuum, and art is the same way. You know, it's really nice, not that I paint with somebody, but just having other people to bounce ideas off of.
Well, a lot of the big corporations now that are kind of think tanky kinds of corporations, they don't have offices. They have like big pods, and people are encouraged to kind of stop by and look over your shoulder and see what you're doing and add a comment. And it's actually, they want you to do that.
Yeah, no, I think it's great.
So it's important for an artist because if you're just stuck in your studio.
When I worked at home for years, and I find it hard to work at home anymore.
I'm sure.
I just don't focus at
well,
home.
You're
and
distracted.
I just, distracted in a way that is not good, like the laundry or the phone. You know, now it's just great when I'm there. If I'm distracted, it's by art, somebody else's art.
What's the largest piece you've ever done?
Probably the largest piece I've done was 3 feet by 5 feet.
What's the largest a watercolor can be? Is there any limit because of the,
the
medium?
That was on a canvas. There is some limit, but the general size of a watercolor sheet is, let me think, 30, I forget the size now, 30
because
by...
I know there's watercolorists that do 40 by 60.
Yeah, well, you can special order it that's called double elephant, so it's
Do you have any desire to get that big?
Not for watercolor, but I do with acrylic. I really, you know, I just like that for size, and I also want to be, I use canvas and panels because you don't need to frame them. You start framing a watercolor that is really large. It's very expensive. So that's kind of why I'm doing a lot in acrylic right now, because I buy the deep cradle, so it's got like and you can paint the side and you can hang it on the wall. It's a great contemporary look.
So is this something you'll be showing at the Open Studios?
Oh yes, yeah, I have a lot of that. Yeah.
Any desire to do things that are more abstract?
I like to have some feeling of, let's say, representational abstraction in my work. So sometimes I like to have a painting that people have to look at and go,
what is the chair painting?
The cartel chairs. Yeah, there's a good example of that. It was a storefront in New York, and Cartel chairs. I think it's a German brand of chairs. And they just look so cool and colorful and interesting. So yes, I was, you know, really bridging the line, I think, on
because I looked at that and I said,
what is it?
This woman is tending towards abstraction with this piece.
Yeah, and I think several of my pieces are like that. But like I said, there's
an element of...
Yes, because I think that's the key, because I really do respect artists who can do pure abstraction, because to me, I think that's really difficult. I need something to ground me. Yeah,
I understand that.
Yeah.
If someone is looking at this and they're thinking about doing a business, do you have any suggestions for them?
To be an artist, you mean?
Yeah, whether it's greeting cards, illustration, whether it's figuring out how to market their work as a different, you know, rather than just showing it in a gallery. Yeah. Any thoughts?
Yeah. You know, the word starving artist didn't come by itself by chance.
Oh, I know.
It's difficult. It can be difficult. I mean, I've been doing pretty well. I do extremely well at my open studios. I tend to sell really well there. You know, marketing is so important. You can paint all the wonderful paintings in the world.
If it doesn't get it out.
You're not getting it out, then, so if you're purely being a fine artist, you know, part of your job has to be marketing, or you have to have somebody who does it for you.
Do you work with art consultants?
I don't really. I've been doing mostly my own marketing, and I'm not against the idea of doing that. I probably should do more of that kind of thing too.
Because I could see your work in a hotel, I could see it in a hospital.
It's funny you say that, because a lot of people, as they've come through my open studios, I've even had people say, oh, you've got to contact so-and-so.
Right.
You know.
Kristin, tell me a little bit about a piece that you did called Stage Light. I have the picture here. And
yeah, okay. I really like that painting. That I took some photos at Longwood Gardens in Pennsylvania, and everybody else is taking pictures of the beautiful flowers, and I'm finding these little niche places that this was like, I don't even think I was supposed to be in there. It was behind closed doors, but I loved the way the lighting was on this radiator, and it was an old curtain and hanging in strings. But so I you know, did a little artist license, but I like to find those interesting spaces that you're not sure what they are. I think that talks back to the idea of abstracting things a little bit. I want people to look at a painting and go, where is that? What is that?
Well, light seems to be a constant source with your work. I mean, how you handle it, where it comes from, the reflections of the mirror, of the windows or the doors. Alchemy is another painting I was going to ask you about. Is that in Boston, or is that?
Actually, it's in Martha's Vineyard. And again, I was drawn to the lighting on that scene. And I take a lot of liberty, you might have noticed, with my colors. So I don't always deal with local color. I kind of do colors that I feel are going to really enhance the piece. And that piece actually ended up being purchased by Alchemy. The restaurant is what it's an image of. They saw it and they're like, we have to have this painting.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
You could make a living doing that alone.
Yes, and it also won the Winsor Newton Award in the National New England Watercolor Society show.
That's great. What about awnings? That's definitely Boston.
Definitely, and that's an acrylic, so that's on a canvas. And let's see, the size on that, I'd say it's 22 by 28, so it's, you know, decent size. And that was actually purchased at my last Open Studios. But again, I was drawn to the interesting light and reflections that are in the store window. And I think you can see a little bit of abstraction there too. Again, you know what it is, you know it's buildings, but there's a little question on things. So
well, I think there's little cameo areas in
yeah.
all of your work that are a little bit more painterly or a little bit more abstract that are more compelling. It's what makes your work a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, I think it's important for me to find those areas. So like when I go out on a photo shoot, I may come back and not have a single image that speaks to me at all. So yeah, I'm always looking for that thing. And I seem to know it. I was like, okay, this is it.
Is the dining room painting yours? Is it your dining room?
It's my dining room, it is. And it's hanging in my living room as you go into the dining room.
So how many of your own pieces are in your house?
A lot, because I can't afford other people's art. So I have a lot of my own art there. But it's good. It makes, I think,
good conversation.
Yeah, it does. And everybody always says my work is generally pretty happy. So I think it really reflects in my home.
Where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself 5 years from today?
Well, I feel like I'm in a really creative point in my career, and I think things have, really since I've had my studio, that more things are beginning to happen and seem people more interested in my work. So, you know, I would love to, you know, have that just perpetuate. I'm in a lot of shows, and, you know, I like winning awards. That really makes me feel like I'm, you know, then my
validation.
Right, exactly. And I would like to find some gallery representation, so that's sort of one of the next rungs on the ladder that I think I need to do. I mean, I did get into Copley Society last year, but I need more.
Have you zeroed in on someone that you think would be suited for your work?
What I would like to do, and I've researched this a little, but I'd like to be in like areas that, say for instance, Florida. I think would like a gallery in Florida. I'd like a gallery in, say, Arizona. So places where there's art centers and where people are looking for art and they have the money to purchase it.
I mean, I could see you in a gallery like the Arden Gallery on Newbury Street in Boston. I mean, Hope does an amazing job with her artists.
I think I need to do more of that. I talk like I've been doing all sorts of looking at galleries, but it's more that I'm looking at them but haven't done a lot with it yet. But that's on my.
So in 5 years from today, I'm going to get an invitation for a one-person show at a gallery in Florida.
That would be nice.
Another one in Phoenix.
There you go.
And another one in Boston.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
I have one question to ask you. Would you please help me finish this sentence? Art is?
Art is, I don't know, it's enlivening. I think it's something that is necessary for everybody. I think everybody can make art, and I think everybody has an attraction to art.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was great. With that, unless there's anything else you really want to talk about,
no, I think that was
I think we can conclude our interview, and I appreciate your coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you.